Who was Langston Hughes? A little biography and a little poetry. Put together by Cheryl Baker. Bouquet. Gather quickly out of darkness all the songs you know, and throw them at the sun before they melt like snow. Who was Langston Hughes? James Mercer Langston Hughes was an American poet, social activist, novelist, playwright, and columnist from Joplin, Missouri. Langston Hughes was one of the most influential artists of the Harlem Renaissance. What was the Harlem Renaissance? The Harlem Renaissance was an intellectual, social, and artistic explosion of African American creativity centered in Harlem, New York City, during the 1920s. Some other important figures from the Harlem Renaissance were Zora Neale Hurston, James Weldon Johnson, W.E.B. Du Bois, Josephine Baker, and Paul Robeson. I, too. I, too, sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I, too, am America. Langston Hughes traveled far and wide during his life. Because of this, he had a broader perspective and deeper understanding of the human condition. As a child, Langston Hughes spent time in Missouri, Kansas, Illinois, Ohio, and Mexico. As a young man, he worked on ships that traveled to Africa, Holland, France, Italy, Asia, and many more faraway lands. Langston Hughes was on a train ride from Ohio to Mexico when he wrote one of his most famous poems, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. The Negro Speaks of Rivers. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. In 1925, while working as a busboy in a hotel in Washington, D.C., Langston Hughes put 3 poems he had written down beside the plate of Vachel Lindsay, a well-known poet eating in the dining room. The next day, newspapers around the country reported that Lindsay, among the most popular white poets of the day, had discovered an African-American busboy poet. Hughes received a scholarship to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania in early 1926. That same year, he received the Witter Bynner Undergraduate Poetry Award. Life is fine. I went down to the river. I sat down on the bank. I tried to think but couldn't, so I jumped in and I sank. I came up once and hollered. I came up twice and cried. If that water hadn't have been so cold, I might have sunk and died. But it was cold in that water. It was cold. I took the elevator 16 floors above the ground. I thought about my baby and I thought I would jump down. I stood there and I hollered. I stood there and I cried. If it hadn't have been so high, I might have jumped and died. But it was high up there. It was high. So since I'm still here living, I guess I will live on. I could have died for love, but for living I was born. Though you may hear me holler, and you may see me cry, I'll be dogged, sweet baby, if you gonna see me die. Life is fine. Fine as wine. Life is fine. Would you like to learn more about Langston Hughes? Visit your library or go online to read more about Langston Hughes' life and to read more of his poetry. Does poetry touch your heart and soul? Do you have a poem in you? Well, start writing. And remember, life is fine.